issue.
Interested in getting money out of politics, putting money in your pocket, and passing Medicare for all.
You're filibustering, Abdul.
What sports kids play.
You're filibustering. It's a big issue.
Because, like,
It's not. Okay. I showed you guys the list. Is it on that list? These are voters in Michigan. This poll was done by Fox News. This is a recent poll. Is that on this list? No, it's not. The major issue that's on this list, he hasn't asked a question about. That's inflation and higher prices. So that was an exchange on Fox News. It was Jesse Waters and El-Sayed. And I want to take a look at we're going to take a look at the whole clip because I've watched a few different short clips, but I want you guys to see this in its entirety, and we'll talk a little bit about it. We're going to react to this. I watched a little bit of this. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I want to talk about it because I think it's important. It's important for us to focus on things like this because when it comes to who we listen to, who we watch, we're talking about a midterm election coming up, and we're listening to hosts or commentators, whatever you want to call them, really spin the narrative. And I still remember a time where you had these commentators, these hosts, they would come on, they would interview people, and they were honest interviews. But now we're not seeing that. We're actually seeing Jesse Waters in this interview. This is more of a debate. He's trying to win. He's trying to win over his viewers, I guess. And that's unfortunate because he's not running for office, but El-Sayed is. So if you are interviewing someone who's running for office, don't you want to ask them the questions that are very important to the viewers and then allow them to answer those questions, not put your personal opinion in the interview, which Jesse Waters is doing this whole time, and we'll talk about it. I'll show you this. But you want to see where they are when it comes to different policies. That's what's important for the viewer, because the viewer has an important decision to make in November. Who are they going to vote for? And so I'm going to show you this full clip. But before we do that, I want to show you this first. I want to show you a Fox News poll. Now, this Fox News poll, this was posted on August 13th, 2026. Okay, I'll zoom in there so you can see it. This is in Michigan. So this is important to the discussion, right? Because you're asking voters in Michigan how they feel about certain issues. Now let's go down. I want to show you the issues that voters in Michigan are concerned with. And this is important because if you're interviewing someone, don't you want to ask them the questions that people are interested in, and people in Michigan are interested in, knowing about and addressing? Those are the questions that you want to ask of a person who's running for Senate in Michigan. Okay, so let's look. So the number one issue here, inflation and high prices, 38%. Now we're going to see in this interview if Jesse Waters asked that question about inflation and higher prices. Immigration and border security. Now understand, we're talking about immigration and border security. Immigration is one aspect. So what are we going to do about people who are here, people who want to come here legally? What are we going to do about that? That's immigration. And then border security, obviously, how are we going to protect the country and not allow people to come into the country illegally? Or if people are in the country illegally, what to do with those people? Okay, that is 14%. Healthcare, that's 14%. Political division within the country, 11%. The conflict in Iran, actually we skipped one, we'll come back. That's 6%. Jobs and unemployment, that's 8%. Abortion, that's 5%. Crime, that's 4%. And then other is less than 1%. And then it says all mix here at 1%. And then don't know is at less than 1%. These are the issues that Michigan voters want to know about. So we're gonna watch this interview, and we'll see how many times. What's important, because we're gonna see. And I watched a little bit of this. I didn't watch the whole thing, but we're going to see in certain points where El-Sayed will try to get to inflation, try to get to higher prices, and so he will mention it. But Jesse Waters is not asking those questions. And so that's what's important. If you're interviewing someone, you should be asking these questions. because these are the important questions that people want to know about. They touch on things like immigration, but the way the questions asked, and I'll let you guys see the interview, but some of these things are touched on very briefly, and then they move on to the next. And then they move on to the next. So they're not really, we're not getting anything when it comes to, El-Sayed is not able to explain how he wants to do things and how, his plan moving forward as a senator, what he would be inclined to, what policies he would be inclined to put in place. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch this clip, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Here we go.
Michigan Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed joins us now. How you doing, Abdul?
I'm good, Jesse. I appreciate the opportunity.
And there's a little bit of a delay, so when Jesse Waters asks him a question, there's kind of that delay there. So just be prepared for that.
For a good, wholesome conversation, and I just want to start where we agree. We both played football and lacrosse. We both love America. We both love freedom, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. We'll see how much we agree on. I know I don't agree with you on this. You want to abolish ICE. Who's going to deport the criminal aliens from the country?
Okay, so just listen to that question. If it's a question, it's actually not even a question. It's like, well, the last part was a question, but the first part is, you want to abolish ICE. So it's like, if you want to ask a question, let's say you're an honest broker, you're on Fox News, you want to ask a question of a candidate. What are your thoughts on immigration? What are your thoughts on border security? How do you want to secure the border? What do we do with the people who are here? I mean, that's a question that you would ask. But it's not even a question for Jesse Waters. It's more of an attack. You want to abolish ICE. I don't agree with you on this. Realistically, Jesse Waters, we don't care what you agree with or disagree with. That's not why you're there. You're not there to debate. You're there to ask the questions. And if you feel that the candidate is lying to you, then you can push back, but ask the question. Don't try to win the argument. And that's what's going on here.
Well, you and I both know that long before we ever had ICE, we had INS. We were able to enforce our immigration policies without shooting people in the face and the back of the head. And we just celebrated our 250th anniversary. That was an anniversary of throwing away tyranny. Now, to bring that tyranny back under the guise of the U.S. government itself, that seems to me to be inconsistent with the freedom you and I both love.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a dodge, Abdul. They did the same thing as ICE back then, INS. Do you know how many illegal aliens are in the country now?
Shoot people in the face and the back of the head.
Do you know how many illegal aliens are in the country now?
To your point, Jesse, let me just answer the question.
To answer it, how many do we have?
Fewer when we had INS.
I mean, and just think of that question. How many illegal, undocumented people do we have in the country? Well, if they're illegally here, they're undocumented, that means they're not on record. So how do you know? Let's just look at the border. If you have people who are sneaking into the country and they're undocumented, we don't know how many people are here. You might be able to give an estimate, but we don't know exactly how many people are here because they're not documented. We don't have it on paper. We don't know exactly how many people there are. So you ask a question that realistically the number, and if you just listen to some of the politicians that are, talking about illegally, people who are illegally here, look at the numbers that they throw out. First it's 2 million, then it's 12 million, then it's 20 million. That's what we're hearing because they don't know. And so, I mean, you're asking a question where you can't prove that answer, which is, ridiculous. I mean, there's certain people that we could know. Okay, so there's certain people that might have come to the country legally and overstayed their visa. Okay, we have record of that. We at least know that they're most likely still here. But people who've entered the country illegally and they weren't caught at the border, we have no idea how many people are actually here. Now, one argument you could make is, well, you could say if you deported people and you know that when you deported those people, they were here illegally, then you can count those people. But those people, that's what we had. What do we have now? Realistically, we don't have that number.
To your answer,
exactly.
Fewer when we had INS, so arguably INS worked a lot better.
Abdul, listen, we had twice as many illegals now.
We have way more. So to your argument,
you have to have the
argument, Jesse. If you want to do that correlation, We have ICE now, and we have far, far more undocumented people. So ICE is clearly not working. It's just shooting like American citizens in the face and the back of the head. So
well, illegals are shooting people in the face
too.
too.
To disagree.
Abdul.
So exactly my point here. We're gonna have to get through this, so I don't want to keep interrupting. But you're watching. I mean, he's trying to debate. Jesse Waters is trying to debate the candidate. Realistically, the candidate El-Sayed should be debating Rogers. This host should be asking questions, getting answers, and then moving to the next question. But he's trying to have this back and forth debate.
You got a guy in Michigan.
American citizens.
You got a guy.
Just think, look,
let me just say something.
Okay? To get back to the conversation about the broader issues.
Okay.
Well, you cut me off, Justin.
And so you see, El-Sayed is talking about the broader issues. He wants to get back. He wants to talk about the issues: inflation, higher prices. He wants to talk about that, healthcare, things like that.
See, and you said we're going to have a good conversation, so I'd like to do that. I just want to answer the point. When I travel the state, and I have traveled my state, more people are asking me about how they're going to afford their gas and groceries. They're not asking me about immigration.
Well, they also don't want to get molested. Abdul, you got a guy here from Southeast Asia, molested a kid. ICE just picked him up. You want that guy to stay in Michigan?
I'm glad that guy got picked up, but that's a different thing than saying that INS would not have picked him up. Jesse, you're too smart for this.
It's a bureaucratic game you're playing, and that's a dodge. You need guys to get these guys out of the country.
And therefore, ICE, we need ICE. I'm just saying, look, playing by your own rules. When we had INS, we had fewer people doing the things that you're talking about.
That's because Biden didn't blow open the border back then.
When we had that.
All right, that's because Biden didn't blow open the border back then.
That's not an ICE question. That's a CBP question.
No,
Jesse,
you
that's
guys
a CBP question.
You know people, and we got to get them out, and we'll take the guys out the way we need to take them out. Green New Deal, you back that up. Do you drive an electric car?
I drive a plug-in hybrid made right in the United States. The bigger question about cars, though, is why the president just started a trade war or escalated a trade war with Canada. It's about to make all of our cars, especially the internal combustion engine cars, so much more expensive.
You want to get rid of the internal combustion engines?
No, I don't. Who told you that?
That's what the Green New Deal says.
To design internal combustion engines. No, that's
the
not
Green
what
New Deal says phase out fossil fuels.
Build renewable energy opportunities. Look, I'm not going to defend the Green New Deal. What I'm telling you, though, is that we could make a whole
You're
lot
on the
more
record
amazing
as
jobs if we
backing
actually
the Green
invested in
New Deal,
renewable energy.
Abdul.
Look, I'm just telling you this. Are you opposed to the idea that we could reduce energy costs and create jobs in Michigan?
Absolutely, but I don't want windmills in Lake Michigan.
So you're absolutely opposed to that?
Yeah, I don't want to put windmills in Lake Michigan.
Than you'd
do
rather
you?
have windmills.
I don't think the people in Michigan want that.
In Lake Michigan, and right now we have one of those.
You're on that. That's not going to go over too well.
Pipeline. No. I mean, Jesse, look, we can have a conversation if you want to. You want to keep cutting me off? We could keep doing that too. But you told me we're going to have a good conversation. I just want to talk about something.
Go ahead.
Right now, we have an oil pipeline in the Great Lakes. If that oil pipeline were to burst, the consequences for our Great Lakes would be disastrous. Now, you're telling me that you'd rather have a situation where that happened than a windmill? That really is so offensive to you?
No.
Those windmills are good.
I'm saying I don't want to get rid of fossil fuels, and that's what the Green New Deal does. Let's move on. You want to soak
I'm not saying that either. Look.
Okay, just listen to how he's asking these questions. It's a tax. He's not even asking questions. You want to do this, you want to do that, you want to do this. I mean, it's shameful is what it is. But I mean, it's just sad. We're watching. This is mainstream media interviewing a candidate where you have an opportunity to allow that candidate to talk about what they want to do to help the American people, and you're attacking that person. And not only are you attacking them, you're not even letting them. You're asking. You're not really asking questions. You're putting this stuff out there. I guess you can call it a question. We'll say it's a question. You're putting it out there, and you're not even allowing the person to respond completely. You're cutting the person off and saying, "Well, no this and no this, and this is what I think." And I mean, it's sad.
Abdul, because this isn't a podcast. I got to sell ads in the breaks. You want to soak the rich. Let's listen to what you said about the taxes. Run it.
I also think we got to start taxing wealth for people who have over $100 million. I mean, at that point, like, what even are you going to do with more money?
What are you going to do with more money? I mean, whatever I want.
I mean, Jesse, I don't know how much you make.
I'm not $1 billion.
I think I'd rather have. Well, yeah, look, so that's exactly it, right? The question ultimately is, do you want to drive on good roads, or would you rather have a billionaire make a second billion? That's what Mike Rogers wants. That's what Donald Trump wants. Apparently, that's what you want. I think the people in Michigan want something different. They want good roads and good schools.
So you're saying,
Billionaires
Beyonce, who just became a billionaire, she has to break you off something every year? She has to pay the politicians?
It's not me. It's the...
And how ridiculous of a question is that? Think about that. How ridiculous is that? Obviously, I mean, and you see the smile on Jesse Waters' face. He's just having a ball. And this is what is considered news, media. This is ridiculous. It really is.
American public.
You're the
Beyonce,
one that wants the money
to be able to contribute back to the public schools that she went to. I think she'd be happy to invest in good roads in her community. I think she'd be happy to pay a little bit more so that everybody had a little bit more.
You're reaching a little
deep
into the
to be
pockets,
defending
Abdul.
billionaires from your channel, Jesse. That's a crazy thing. I thought you were for. I'm just saying. Look, at the end of the day, I thought you were for the everyday man. Like if you're for billionaires more than you're for every other person, well, you and I are just going to disagree.
No, I just think I have the right to the fruits of my own labor. That's America. It's not communist, what you're talking about.
No, the problem
Let
with
me
it,
ask
Jesse,
you
is
about socialized health care.
Billionaires don't make money. Let me just answer the question. No. Let me go back to that.
Go ahead.
Billionaires don't make their money off of their labor. That, I think, is where you head off. Billionaires that make their money off their money. So if you have $1 billion, your billion makes another 100 million. That's not the fruits of your labor. That's just the fruits of your money making money. I think it's okay. Like if we tax you at 7%, you're still gonna make what, a cool $30 million off your $1 billion. I think it's okay. They're gonna be okay, Jesse.
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of politicians like you capping how much money people make in America. That's just me. We can have the voters in Michigan decide. You say you want socialized health care. Abdul, how much is that going to cost?
It's gonna cost the average Michigander a whole lot less than they pay right now. But I'm just gonna tell you,
No, but what's the
I'm up
price
against
tag
a
of the
guy
program?
who voted to raise prescription drug prices 19 times, right? And so I'm just saying I want to bring your costs down. The price of the program is going to be substantially less for an everyday person who's out here who can't afford their health care and worried about losing their health care with their job.
Well, give me the total number.
While you're out here trying to talk about the broader national budget, I'm a lot more interested in the everyday budgets that Michiganders are thinking about. And that's exactly the budget that Donald Trump and Mike Rogers are blowing up right now.
Well,
I just don't see why you're so on the side of the billionaires, Jesse, rather than on the side of everyday Michiganders.
No, because I don't want you guys to blow the country up. Do you know how much the federal budget is now?
No, neither do I. Here's exactly
What's the federal budget?
You guys want to, right? Pete Hegseth, who used to work
answer
for
the
your
question. Do you know what the federal budget
wanted
is?
to raise. No. I just want to talk about this. Look, you want to talk about budgets? I'm happy to do that. The guy who used to work on your channel, I think he was like the 6th host on the 5. He wanted to raise our military budget to $1.5 trillion, and you don't seem to be upset about that. What? So we can fight a war we don't know how to get out of? To raise our gas prices $5 a gallon? That doesn't make sense to me, Jesse. We want to talk about the things that we actually should spend on. To me,
I have a feeling, Abdul, you don't even know how much money the government spends every year. Do you know?
Look, the question, Jesse, to me
All right,
is,
so you
I
don't
know
know.
what
Let me tell you
Michiganders
what it is. It's
spend.
$7 trillion
focused
a year. And your plan
Jesse,
to take over the
I can tell
healthcare
you
system
that
is
is
$4
here's
trillion.
the problem with it. So to exactly your point.
Okay, and I want to stop just 1 second because Jesse Waters has an issue with Medicare for all. That's what they're talking about. So healthcare for everyone costing $4 trillion. You know what else costs $4 trillion over a 10-year span? The big, beautiful bill. So the bill that they passed in 2025, that costs $4 trillion. That's going to add $4 trillion to the national debt. This, if you want to say Medicare for all is going to cost $4 trillion to the national debt, this helps everyone. The big, beautiful bill doesn't help everyone. It helps people, and you have the tax deductions, no tax on tips, no, all that stuff that you hear them talking about. Realistically, it's a tax deduction. It's not helping people that much, and it doesn't help everyone. No tax on overtime, but it's only the half of the overtime. So it's not helping you for the full overtime. So you still have to pay taxes on that. The tax deduction, $6,000 for people that are 65 or older. This is not, we're not saying no tax on Social Security, because people on Social Security could still have to pay taxes because, for one, if you're not over 65, you're going to have to pay taxes. So let's say you take Social Security at 62, You're still going to have to pay taxes if you meet that, meet the criteria there. And it's only a tax deduction. So you're not getting anything back. It's not a refundable tax credit or anything like that. And so the majority of the big, beautiful bill, the benefits, it's going to the wealthy. It's not going to the everyday person. But if you had that Medicare for all, that's going to help everyone because everyone will have an option. They'll have some type of Medicare.
You know what?
I'm not very good at math. I don't think you're very good at math either, but go ahead.
Clearly you don't. And you don't seem to care. But I don't think most Americans want to spend that much money on military escapades so that the folks stranded on the USS Abraham Lincoln can't even get a sausage for breakfast. I just think that we could do a lot better with our money, Jesse, and I think that's where you and I disagree.
I just disagree.
Disagrees with you.
I think if we spend $4 trillion, everything else is going to get really expensive. You're going to look back at Biden inflation, and you're going to wish you were back there. But you brought up foreign policy.
You talk about inflation. I'd be happy to talk about inflation, Jesse. You actually said the word, because everywhere I go,
and so you see, okay, and let's just do. We're going to go back. We'll come back to this in a second. But I just want to show you what's been discussed so far. What have they discussed? And how do these questions go? So inflation, still haven't seen anything. When it comes to immigration and border security, talked about border security, talked about ICE. That's it. Comes to healthcare, they just talked about healthcare just a little bit, but realistically, we didn't get any part. Like the question that Jesse Waters should have asked is, what is your plan for healthcare? You talk about Medicare for all. What is the plan and what is it going to cost? But he just asked, how much is that going to cost us? So didn't even want to get into the details of what this type of universal healthcare could look like for everyone. And so haven't talked about political divisions, jobs and unemployment, conflict in Iran. I think they're going to get into that. But you see how El-Sayed said, inflation, okay, he said something about inflation, so I'm going to go in and talk about inflation. Jesse Waters doesn't want to talk about inflation. He doesn't want to talk about high prices. Why? Because he knows that is not something that's favorable to Republicans right now. And so he wants to avoid that at all costs.
Michigan, people are talking about the fact that they've never had to worry as much about life being as unaffordable as they say right now. Now, I get it. Donald Trump likes to blame everything on his predecessor. But let's be clear, this is Donald Trump's economy right now. And he's about to make everything so much worse because he's in a vanity war with the Prime Minister of Canada. And look, like, I'm in Michigan and you're from New York, right? So you know Canadians, man. They're the only people I know who apologized before they even did his thing. So now they're raising the tariff to 50%. What's that going to do to inflation?
Yeah, what is spending $4 trillion going to do? I think it's going to make it a lot worse. But you brought up the war.
So it goes back to $4 trillion. I mean, El-Sayed asked a legitimate question there. What is a 50% tariff going to do? Like, what are our prices going to look like now when, if we have things coming from, we need to buy things that come from Canada? It's going to be crazy. I mean, the prices are going to really shoot up. But he goes back to the $4 trillion. And let me remind you, the big, beautiful bill, $4 trillion over 10 years. And so what does Jesse Waters think about that? What is that going to do to our economy?
Are you glad the Ayatollah is dead?
Yeah, I mean, look, he was a terrible person, but that's beyond the point. The bigger question is, should we have gone to war in the first place? Sure. I just want to be clear with you, right? I mean, I'm never going to defend the Iranian regime, but I am going to defend the idea that we probably shouldn't be fighting wars we don't know how to get out of. Oopsie, you go to war and you tell us that it's going to be a special military operation. That was in February. We're now in September almost, and we're still fighting the special military operation. I mean, it's not working for us, Jesse, and this is exactly what happens when you got a dunce in the White House who doesn't know what he's doing.
So you'd go back in time, you'd give them back their nuke program, you'd give them back their Air Force, their Navy?
No, I'd go back to the time when we were at peace and we actually had nuclear containment. Now, Jesse, you like to, I mean, look, I understand selective memory about history, but we had a JCPOA that was well negotiated, that actually had nuclear non-proliferation far more securely than what we have right now after having gone to war for the better part of 6 months.
Yeah, I like the fact that the nuke program's buried under a mountain of rubble. They can't even get access to it, but that's me. I think we'll figure it out. The thing you said about...
So let's just stop there. So, sure. Jesse, wait. I understand you're not good at math. I get that. I'll give you that. But science, you got to talk about science, okay?
Yeah.
You understand that, like, nuclear material doesn't just go away because you buried it under a mountain of rubble. You understand they can still go back and bury it out, right?
Yeah, we're watching it from Space Force.
So
and anybody
we're not any more
goes
secure
near
than we were back then.
Okay, let's move on. You said getting rid of Sharia law was white supremacy. Let's roll the tape. Go.
I don't have to tell you that the same exact forces that drove native peoples from their land 2 centuries ago, destroyed Black Wall Street a century ago, bombed a building decades ago, and tried to ban Sharia law not a decade ago, that those forces are alive and well today.
So getting rid of Sharia law is white supremacy. Can you explain that one?
Do you know what canon law is? Jesse, I assume you're Christian, right?
Yeah, tell me.
All right, so canon law is the name for Christian law. I don't begrudge you your right to practice your faith as you choose. I don't know why the idea that I could practice my faith as I choose is a problem. Nobody is trying to push Sharia law on anyone else, just like I hope nobody is trying to push canon law on anybody else, because we live in an America where you should have the freedom of your religion. So the idea that you have somebody like Tommy Tuberville, right, who, barely was good at coaching football, is out here trying to ban Sharia law when there's less than 1% of the Muslim community in America, as if somehow Muslims are out here trying to push Sharia law, that seems to me to be deliberately targeting the Muslim community because they're different. And I'm just saying that, like, I have no issue with people practicing their faith. In fact, I would never want somebody to push their faith on me, and I would never want to push my faith on somebody else.
Good, because no one wants you to get rid of your religion.
So the idea, I'm
no
just saying,
one wants that.
So, but when people preemptively go out there and start preemptively passing laws to ban something that's not happening, what you're trying to do is target a very small community because they're different. And this operates. I mean, look, I'm just going to say, there's statistical evidence that the president and the vice president like to target me simply as a function of my faith.
It's like men
Nobody's trying to
equal
push it on anybody, but like,
it's like
I just think
physical
you like to
punishments.
say the word. Look, Jesse, look,
people don't
you
like
to
that
say
in
the
Michigan.
word
I'm just saying
because it seems
that's a good
really
position.
scary. Nobody's pushing it. No, but Jesse, nobody's pushing it. You know what the issue is in America, in Michigan?
What?
The issue that people are worried about is not that somehow somebody's going to come and push Sharia law on them. The issue in Michigan is people are worried about how they're going to afford their gas. The issue in Michigan is how am I going to see a doctor when I get sick? How am I going to keep my job? You're out here, honestly, I love to play this
agree with you,
game where you use these words that sound really foreign to
with you.
avoid actually having to talk about the issues that everyday people like to talk about. Now, look, Mike Rogers is the guy I'm running against for U.S. Senate. And I know you've had him on your show. Maybe he answers questions. I don't know if he does.
I've actually
never
never
on
had him
Newsmax
on.
only. But look, you haven't. So he's ducking your show too because he's ducking. Look, can we all agree? Like,
I haven't
Jesse, you and
invited
I
him
want
on.
to have a debate, right? Can we all agree that Mike Rogers is a beta? Can we all agree with that?
I haven't even
Dude
had him
won't
on.
even come on your show because he's afraid of getting grilled. I'm just going to say this.
Have him on.
That guy
and I'm sure
wants
it'll
to be out
great.
here
But
talking
Abdul,
like, Jesse, let me just
can
say,
I back up
he's
for
out
one
here
second?
trying to talk about Mike.
Can I back up for
I
1
just
second?
finish my point. I'll finish.
Yeah,
I'll be quick.
okay, because Mike Rogers isn't here to defend himself.
He thinks he's running against Hassan Piker.
And now he wants to defend Mike Rogers isn't here to defend himself. Wait, we can't talk about Mike Rogers. But you saw, Jesse Waters doesn't want to talk about the major issues. He doesn't want to talk about high prices. He doesn't want to talk about gas prices and things like that. He doesn't want to have that conversation. And that's the conversation that needs to be had because that's what people are most concerned about.
Well, maybe then he'll actually come on your show. Maybe I'm doing you a favor then. But the guy's a beta, doesn't like to answer questions, and he dodges every debate. So I'm pretty sure he's going to dodge you too.
Need Mike Rogers on the show, but thanks for
say is this.
Thanks for
But you just said you'll have him on the show. Wow.
it. I agree. Gas prices are too high.
Benefit.
Gas prices are too high.
Okay, good.
Wait down 1 second. Gas prices are too high. Green New Deal's not going to help that.
Okay. Wow. So what is going to help that? Jesse Waters, enlighten us. What is going to help that? Because gas prices are too high. You just said, and then he goes to the Green New Deal. He doesn't talk about the current administration and what's going on and the reason why gas prices are high when it comes to the war in Iran and all these other factors. He doesn't talk about that. He just talks about the Green New Deal.
You said that we get to keep our doctor. I've been told that before. We were lied to. So let's move on.
Jesse.
You said here, I want to move on because
So those aren't, he's not asking questions. He's just making statements and then moving. Oh, let's move on. you're interviewing a candidate. Ask them questions, let them answer the questions. Why would you just I mean, it's almost like you see this a lot when you're watching these different conferences. You know, the politicians, they have the cabinet meeting, not cabinet meetings, but they have meetings and they're talking to a panel of people and they're asking them questions. And sometimes a politician, they don't have a question to ask. And so they just grandstand and they just say all this stuff that they want to say. And then they just move on. They don't even allow the people on the panel to ask or to answer questions. They just say what they feel, and then they get up, and then the politician gets up, and then they leave. This is exactly what Jesse Waters is doing. He's not asking questions that the people want to know about. He's asking the questions that he doesn't agree with, and then some of the stuff he's just making statements. And then let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to the next.
We do have to hit a break.
Let me just finish the point.
Please.
You told me you want to say something.
Go ahead.
And I want to just finish my point, okay?
Yeah.
If the only answer that Mike Rogers and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have to this economy is to point to me and say there are scary words associated with him, I'm just going to tell you those scary words are not raising gas prices or keeping you from seeing your doctor. I'm interested in getting money out of politics, putting money in your pocket, passing Medicare for all. And I think that actually will solve problems in Michigan.
I'm not scared of you.
If you think
Abdul, I just think you're a little misguided.
Or
That's
running
all.
against my faith is going to fix problems, go ahead.
No.
Okay, El-Sayed tried to bring back the economy, the Medicare for all. He's trying to bring that back. Jesse Waters is not biting. He doesn't want to talk about that.
I just played what you said and we talked about it, so we're all good. You also said this. You want to replace the right to bear arms with the right to health care. You don't want to replace the Second Amendment, do you?
Well, look, man, I think more people are more worried about whether or not they can see a doctor than whether or not they can have a gun. I'm just going to put that out there.
I mean, you're
And if you
dodging the
disagree with me,
question.
go
Do you
ahead
want
and
to
quote it.
replace the Second Amendment?
I'm just saying that more people are more concerned about seeing a doctor. If we had a right to health care in this country, they probably wouldn't. And I think that'd be a pretty good thing, don't you?
I think you dodged the question. And that's a pretty big one in Michigan. But I'll take it as what you said. You
Jesse,
said
look,
Colin
at the end of the day,
Kaepernick.
I'm perfectly fine with people. Let me just finish the answer.
So now we're talking about Colin Kaepernick. Are you kidding me? These issues that we were going over, not talking about those issues, but we're talking about Colin Kaepernick. Are you? This is what I'm talking about. Like, this isn't an honest discussion. Jesse Waters is not trying to enlighten his audience. He doesn't want to know what El-Sayed wants to do to help the American people. He's not interested in that. He just wants to win the debate. So let me try to pull up anything that I can to try to win this debate. That's all he's focused on.
To your point, you said I dodged a question. I'm perfectly okay with people having their hunting rifles. It's an important pastime. I've got family that goes hunting every single year. But don't you think we should have a right to health care? Don't you think that'd be a good thing in America? Can we just say that?
75% of the country likes the health care coverage they have. I don't want to screw that up.
And that's the thing. And I don't know what El-Sayed says because we haven't listened to it yet, but that's the thing. People might like their health coverage, and that's fine. But if you had a system where you had health care for everyone, then people they have a choice. They could say, like, for instance, I pay $1,000 a month for health insurance. I'm retired now, so I have to pay that. And my old job pays a portion of it, and I pay the rest. But it's $1,000 every month. Now, if we had a system where you had health care for everyone, I could still keep my plan. I could still keep the current plan that I have, or I could look into other plans. And maybe I like another plan better than the plan that I have, and I would be able to save that $1,000. I wouldn't have to pay that $1,000. Now, sure, just like Medicare that people have now, you pay into it, and then you're able to have it once you reach 65. There would have to be a system in place in order for everyone to have health coverage. But guess what? Most developed countries have some form of universal health care. We're the only country that doesn't. And I've traveled a lot, and I know, and I've talked to people in different countries, and they tell me, yes, we have a form of universal health care. So everyone is covered. Now, if you want to have your own private plan, you can still have your private plan. But we have another option for you if you run into a situation where you can't have that plan. I mean, I was just talking to a friend just last week and she was telling me that her husband was laid off. So he's laid off. He's 56 years old. Guess what? Now he needs to try to find healthcare coverage, and it might be difficult for him. Now, sure, he might be able to qualify for, Medi-Cal. He's in California, so he might be able to qualify for Medi-Cal, but it's still a struggle. Could you imagine if we had universal health care where you don't have to worry about a situation if you lose your job? Now you know that you're still going to have coverage because everyone has coverage. So you have an option. Now, if you want to say, you know what, I don't want the universal health care, so I want to get my own coverage, that's fine. You can go get your own coverage. But you at least have an option. You're not going to find yourself getting sick and not being able to pay your bills. That is the problem that we're facing. And people in other countries, they can't understand how this is even possible. And I'm telling you this from personal experience. I travel, I'm in other countries. People tell me that all the time. They can't even believe our healthcare structure. I mean, it's just crazy.
No, 75% of the country wants guaranteed healthcare through Medicare for all. So maybe you have your facts. I guess I know you guys do alternative facts over here, so I'll give you that.
We'll find out in November. But that's a Gallup poll. You might not believe it, but
yes, we will.
I'm telling you what it is.
Yes, we will.
You said Colin Kaepernick was a good guy, and you said the NFL was racist. What did you mean by that?
Look, I think for Colin Kaepernick's sake, I think he should have had several more years in the NFL. Now, I think he's a pretty damn good quarterback. I think, unfortunately, he lost a lot of time. But the bigger question right now when it comes to football, look, I know you guys like to think I don't like football, but I'm happy to line up against anybody who thinks that I don't like football. And I'll just tell you, the bigger issue that we have for football right now is I looked at ticket prices to try and go and see a game with my family. It's astronomical, through the roof. Now, I think football used to be the kind of thing that you could enjoy with people.
It's another dodge, Abdul.
So
I mean,
I want to talk about access to football.
I asked you if you thought the NFL was racist because you said the NFL was racist, and now you're talking about ticket prices.
No, I'm just telling you, the NFL is too expensive. The NFL is too expensive. You don't agree?
All right, so you don't think it's racist anymore?
I get it, but most people can't afford it.
I'm glad. You don't think the NFL is racist anymore. That's good.
Most people can't afford that. The bigger issue with the NFL, you want to talk about the NFL, the bigger issue with the NFL is too many people can't afford it. I get you probably can, and I know that you're in New York, so you have like two teams that play in the same place, so you get two options. But I'm just saying that here in Michigan, we got one team.
Okay.
And most people can't afford to watch them in the stadium. And I'd like to make it more affordable.
Right, so you dodged again. Sex changes for minors. Do you support that?
Now we're on. Wow. I showed you the list. You guys know what's on this list when it comes to the issues that are most important. And we're not really talking about those issues.
Look, I remember having great conversations with my conservative friends about right to try legislation. The idea that the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. I just think the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. And if you're a minor,
you want to try on kids?
Now, if you disagree with that, if you disagree that healthcare decisions need to be made by a doctor and their parents and a patient, then we think we agree to disagree. But you want to put government inside a clinic
you're a
or
doctor,
hospital
right?
Selectively. I am.
So you think it's okay for a parent to slash his kid's fingernail? You think that's okay?
I mean, do you really want to have this conversation? Are you circumcised?
Yeah, but I mean, that's a
Jesse, are you?
personal question.
Okay.
Bingo. Bingo. It's a personal question. It's something that you want to discuss with your family and your doctor. You don't want the government involved in situations like this. I think that's what El-Sayed is trying to explain to Jesse Waters, but Jesse Waters is saying, he just doesn't get it. And so if you want to have government intervention, just understand you're opening up a situation where now government can get involved in other aspects of your health. Do you want that?
Doctor?
So you probably should want to move on. You probably should want to move on.
Is circumcision's different than castration?
I think it's a problem. It's a problem that you think that you get to decide what happens between a parent, a doctor, and a patient. And I'm just saying that, yes, circumcision is surgery on a kid's dingling. So if you really want to bring that up, you can. I just think you guys are really selective about how you talk about these things.
Abdul, Michigan's not going for that. That is 6.
Okay, so now Jesse Waters speaks for Michigan, even though I don't think he's ever lived there. I don't think he's from Michigan. I think they mentioned on here that he's from New York.
Stuff. boys playing in girls' sports.
I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying.
What about that?
So the question,
Wow.
so again, like Jesse, you have not asked me one time about the issues that people actually care about in Michigan.
Exactly.
You don't want to talk about gas prices. You don't want to talk about groceries. You don't want to talk about healthcare. You don't want to talk about this stupid trade war that's about to destroy Michigan's economy. You don't
Interview
want to talk
talking about
actual
that
war.
stuff.
We spent the whole interview talking about that stuff. Did we really? Because that's not what I heard. You guys let me know in the comments if that's what you heard.
That's destroying, that is destroying our own military. You don't seem to want to talk about any of those things. You want to bring up all this culture war that, you know, I'm not here to
We
fight a
talked
culture war. I'm
about
here
the
to
war. We
fight the
talked about
affordability
gas
crisis that people are
prices
facing.
and the Green New Deal, okay?
We talked about gas prices and the Green New Deal. Wow.
If you want to do an
I
interview,
brought 'em up every time.
you can do the interview,
You're
okay?
asking me, like, you're doing
I'll
the
ask the
greatest hits,
questions.
Jesse. Like, I mean, this is like, you could play this game if you want, but like, you can keep doing the greatest hits if you want. You told me we're going to come on for a conversation, and when we have conversations, I think it's okay to also ask questions. I just want to understand what you're getting at here.
I'm getting at whether you
And
think
Michigan,
men should play
as the
in
next
women's
senator in
sports.
Michigan.
That's the important question that voters want to know. That's all they want to know. They don't want to know about inflation and high prices. Why do they need to know about that? They want to know about boys in men and women's sports. That's what they want to know.
I'm interested in getting money out of politics, putting money in your pocket, and passing Medicare for all.
You're
You know what most
filibustering,
people care about?
Abdul.
What sports kids play. And
You're
also,
filibustering.
I'm just
It's a
answering
big
questions
issue.
because, like, I want
It's not okay. I showed you guys the list. Is it on that list? These are voters in Michigan. This poll was done by Fox News. This is a recent poll. Is that on this list? No, it's not. The major issue that's on this list, he hasn't asked a question about. That's inflation and higher prices.
You
talk
guys
about
kind of
issues that
lost
your
on that issue
viewers
last time.
deserve to hear about.
All right, so you want to answer that question.
What issue?
You won't answer the question.
What issue? Go ahead, Jesse. What issue?
Should men
Go
play
ahead, ask
women's
it again.
sports? You have daughters, right?
I think that, look, I played sports my whole life. Sports were an important part of my life. I'm grateful for the opportunity to play sports. And at the end of the day, the decision of who gets to play what sports ought to be decided by the people who govern sports. I'm running for U.S. Senate. Jesse, it's insane. I'm out here trying to take on like the healthcare crisis in big pharma, and you're asking me about who gets to play what sports. It's silly. People can't take you seriously.
Really? Following the news recently, Abdul. Let me ask you about the politics. We'll get to your race. Let's do your race right now.
Please be serious. Like, I'm here with you. I want to have a conversation about the issues that matter.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about the things that people are actually talking about.
Okay. I am, but let's keep going.
Okay, so let's see what this next question is. He said, I am.
Black people in
I know
Michigan.
you guys are talking about that, but like most of the country's not.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Black people in Michigan voted for this white lady you ran against by like 8 points over you. What happened there?
Okay, this is what people want to know. This is what voters in Michigan are concerned with.
Well, Jesse, I mean, you said it yourself, right? You got to give credit to Abdul. He ran against the machine. I got outspent 11-1. That 11-1 is going to do something at the end of the day. Now, my job is to go and earn every vote. And we've been having some great conversations in the community. We'll continue to do that. And I have a lot to talk about when it comes to my work taking care of communities. I rebuilt Detroit's health department, led Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services, got to work alongside so many folks in the community to give kids glasses, take on corporate polluters, eliminate medical debt. I'm looking forward to continuing to have those conversations, and I feel really good about being able to bring communities together and beat Mike Rogers, who you and I both agree is a beta and won't come on your show and won't debate me in November.
Didn't agree to that, but that's funny. Reparations, do you support that?
But you laughed at it.
I did.
Because you didn't say you didn't agree. Like, Jesse, you're very good at telling me when you don't agree with me, but you actually laughed at that joke because you actually agree. Sorry.
Reparations, do you support that?
Okay, now we're on the reparations. Not on the list, but Jesse Waters thinks that the viewers need to see that.
I think we need to have an honest conversation about the incredible debt that was put upon Black folks as a function of slavery that we have yet to pay. And I just think that's fair. Like, if people are enslaved and forced into servitude, and then we don't actually have a conversation about all that was owed, that our own country agreed was owed, I just think that it's past time to have that conversation. That shouldn't be a crazy thing. I understand that, like, for folks who really want to inflame culture war, I just think it's important for us to think about how do we make sure that communities like the city of Detroit that have been segregated so that you have a disproportionate number of people as a function of redlining who are forced into certain communities, how do we make sure that their schools are made whole? I'll just tell you this, in the city of Detroit right now, they just had $700 million invested in their schools. They're still $1.7 billion behind. And a lot of folks want to say, oh, well, that's profligacy, et cetera, et cetera. No, a lot of that has to do with public policy.
Okay.
And if public policy created a level in which black folks disproportionately suffer everything from maternal mortality and infant mortality to lack of access to jobs, I think it's important for our country
so you want to have a conversation about it. People whole. You want to have a conversation about it because we have you on the record as backing it, but now you just want to have a conversation. I got it. I got it.
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly what. Go ahead.
Schumer. You said you basically wanted his head on a stake when you were running in the primary. You still believe that?
Well, look, me and the senator have one goal right now. It is to win Michigan. So we're looking forward to doing that. And given the fact that Mike Rogers, who you agree is a beta, is my opponent, it probably shouldn't be very hard.
Okay. I respect the fact that you came on.
Me. Mike, bro, talk to your guy.
I respect the fact that you came on. I don't think you've really looked into some of the policies you're pushing. You seem a little naive, Abdul. I give you credit for facing the music, but some of the stuff's just straight up wacky. You know? I don't know if that's going to fly in Michigan, but we're going to find out.
You know what's wacky?
We're going to find out.
We're going to find out. And you know what's wacky?
Yeah.
You know what's wacky, though?
Yeah.
Can I just tell you, you know you didn't ask me about?
What?
We got a president of the United States who cares more about the drapes in a ballroom that shouldn't be built than he cares about the war he just got us into, or that he cares about the affordability crisis. That seems to me to be a little bit wacky. So if we want to have a serious conversation about what Michiganders are feeling, I'd love to come back on and talk about money out of politics, put money in your pocket, passing Medicare for all.
Okay, we'll do it again.
I'm telling you, none of that is wacky, and that's what Michiganders want.
We'll do it again, Abdul.
It was a good conversation.
All right, thank you so much. Good luck in Michigan.
See, at least I don't dodge you.
No. Yeah.
Thank you.
Like 25%. Have a good night.
All right. So what do you guys think? At the end there, El-Sayed did talk a little bit about, look, you didn't talk about affordability. You didn't talk about, I mean, we can go over the list again. I can pull it up and just show you. I mean, we didn't really get any substance because the questions that needed to be asked, they weren't asked. And that's a huge problem. This right here should have been the bulk of the discussion because there's a lot there and we want to know. If I have a candidate in front of me, I want to know how that candidate feels about inflation. Do they think it's a problem? First off, how do they think we should address it? When it comes to higher prices, how do they think we should address it when it comes to gas prices and all this different stuff? We didn't really get much of that. Border security, they talked a little bit about that, but it was more of just like you want to abolish ICE. You know, that kind of wasn't how do you feel about immigration? What is your plan? If you're the senator, what's your plan to address immigration? We didn't hear about that. What's your plan to address border security? Healthcare, they talked a little bit about healthcare, but realistically, I mean, it was more of a, how much is that going to cost? Why not talk about what is exactly your plan when it comes to healthcare for all? Political division within the country, didn't address that. Unemployment, jobs, didn't talk about that. That's something that's major right now. We should be talking about jobs. We have, AI, that's something else that they didn't talk about, but that's something that is starting to impact people. We're seeing these Tyson plants and seeing these different plants laying people off. And so that wasn't talked about. Conflict in Iran, they talked about it briefly. When it comes to abortion, didn't talk about that at all. When it comes to crime, I guess you can say they talked about a few different things. Jesse Waters had the whole thing when they were talking about immigration and all of that. He threw in there. But the reality is, when it comes down to it, the major issue wasn't talked about. Didn't talk about immigration as far as like, what do we do with people who are already here? I mean, it's just sad. It really is. Because we're not getting anything from mainstream media anymore. I mean, you have to rely on channels like mine and, other channels that are on YouTube and other platforms to get information, or rely on newspapers that are putting out information. Because mainstream media, this is just pathetic. It really was. And Jesse Waters knows that he didn't ask the number one question at all. And El-Sayed tried to get to it. Inflation, oh, let me talk about inflation. And then Jesse Waters wanted to move to the next question. And so I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.